introduction. I'll be introducing Stephen and Norman from HMRC, who will spend around 20 minutes in presenting on transit from HMRC's point of view. Then we have the pleasure of Jason Crook's company. Jason is the VAT Director at Rayner Essex, and Jason is going to touch on areas of the one-stop shop, which many of you have heard about, having been introduced in the European Union, and what is all that about and how can that help you to trade, and also on the issues around VAT triangulation, something that we've received quite a number of questions on over the last, I would say, particularly over the last 3 to 4 months, as people get to grips with VAT issues around moving goods, particularly into and out of the European Union. So moving on, just by way of brief introduction, the main subject for discussion today is the Common Transit Convention. So I just wanted to start with a header on what is the Common Transit Convention. Someone in the background has got their microphone open and I think their camera on. If I could ask you to switch that off if you're one of our guests, that would be particularly useful. So what is Common Transit Convention? The Common Transit Convention, or what we commonly talk about as transit, is a customs procedure that allows goods to move between common transit countries, with duty being paid only at the point of destination, the final country. It's used for moving goods between GB and EU states, the EFTA countries of Iceland, Norway, Liechtenstein and Switzerland, as well as Turkey, Macedonia and Serbia. And clearly the value is in the reduction in the administrative burden on traders by removing the need for an additional import or export declaration every time you enter a customs territory. So it means that you can move through a customs territory without making an import declaration, say at Zeebrugge, an export declaration at a final country in the EU, and then an import in a country like Switzerland, for example. So it means that goods can move seamlessly in customs terms through a range of countries, and that so allows the goods to depart the exporting country, to transit each of the customs territories that the goods are going to move through, and then discharge the transit movement and make the import declaration at the final point of destination. So that's a bit on the background. Just to put some numbers and scope on it, this is drawn from the EU website, who very helpfully have got a module on there where you can look at transit movements either departing or arriving from CTC countries. This slide represents the last 12 months of movements, and so you can see that there are some countries that where transit movements, this is departing the United Kingdom for example, Italy, where we have lots of goods departing the UK for Italy under transit, Germany, the Netherlands, and some others. And so clearly this has been used as a significant tool in, for example, Italy, Germany and the Netherlands, where the goods may indeed be transiting via Dover Straits into France and onwards to other countries. Some of the other larger territories are Belgium, Poland and the like. When looking at goods arriving, the volumes are a bit lower, so we tend to use transit less for imports than perhaps we could do, and very much we're seeing an increase in the number of transit movements that are taking place from the United Kingdom into mainland Europe for export. So those numbers that I showed previously, I did a bit of analysis and look like they've gone up by around about 30 to 40% in some of those territories over the last months compared to previously. So again, just a call to ask you to mute if you join the call or have joined the call recently. So there's a significant change in the volume of transit, certainly in anticipation of the end of transition or a hard Brexit, transit was something that wasn't much talked about. There was more concern over the increase in import and export declarations and what would happen at the border. What we have seen, though, since January is a significant lift up in the number of movements of goods out of the UK into European countries that are using the Common Transit Convention. So I'm going to end there, and I'm going to switch over now and ask Norman and Stephen to share their slides. So if we can stop sharing, and I'll hand over to you, Stephen, to take us forward with the presentation from HMRC.
Thank you. Well, Chris is booting up the slides for us. So Chris, if you wouldn't mind sharing your screen, thank you. My name's Stephen Younger. I'm one of the senior managers from Customs and HMRC. I've been managing the authorizations departments of DDA, CFSP, etc. I also manage the Customs and International Trade line. We've been trying to do a lot more customer outreach recently because we were aware that for a number of customers, for whatever reason, they don't feel able to engage fully with, you know, the processes. So as a consequence, we've been running a series of events when inviting customers to join us. So we've covered DDA, CFSP, guarantees, transit, etc. But also reaching out to different trade associations, etc. to talk about the issues that matter to them most. Hence why we're here today. And when we had the conversation, we thought the most useful thing to talk to you about would be transit, and in particular inbound and outbound. So with that, what I'm going to do is invite my colleague Norman to join in, and Norman's one of the subject matter experts. I've got a number of subject matter experts with me here today. What I would encourage you to do, please, is if you do have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat bar, and we'll take them away, and if we can, we'll answer them immediately, and if not, we'll take them away and answer them at a later date. So with that, if you wouldn't mind, Chris, going on to the next slide, and I'll let Norman take over. Thanks very much, everybody.
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you can hear me. My name's Norman Tottenham, and I lead a team of technical experts in regards to transit, and we're based in Leeds, in the north of England, working on all things transit and all things moved. We deal with, and amongst other things, inbound and inbound teams. Inbound is a term we really use just to describe where the goods are coming. So we would call anything that was coming into the UK as an inbound movement, and the inbound teams themselves deal with the issues that come out of movements that haven't been closed properly, or there have been issues with those movements between the office of departure and the office of destination. Now, they may be around issues in regards to lodgement of documents, if it's in regards to, for example, fallback. We deal with a lot of messages on the NCTS system, and they're called IE messages, and there's a whole load of those. They also deal with national clearance, and community transit reasons for how we complete recovery, i.e. how we close the movement and make it right, make sure that everything has been closed off properly or to everybody's satisfaction, so that the movement is completely finished and any guarantees that need to be released are released. Yeah, and we also deal with fallback inquiries, which is something that is used when a trader cannot use a system for whatever, use the NCTS system for whatever reason, or if the system has fallen over and is not working, or there are scheduled downtime and the like. Fallback is a system that is used, but has to be generally, you have to be allowed to use it. So you request to use it for for the reason you need to, or we give out a general edict. Can I have the next slide, please? Have you got that there, Chris? Thank you. For the inbound process, it works along the the lines that any customs office that's dealing with these issues will get a request from another foreign customs, to ask them to commence some kind of investigation onto that particular movement because it hasn't been closed properly. And by properly I mean it's just not everything matches. This would involve us making an investigation for inbound processes. We would then contact the consignee, the person who is receiving the goods, to ask them for further documentation as to what happened with the goods, and how any duty was paid. They will also deal with anything in regards to the fallback provision where something has not worked properly. A trader has been allowed to go back to the fallback provisions and then have a look at any documents and bits and pieces that have been created or stamped by foreign customs, because this is a paper-based system. They will be to and fro. There will be general to and fro of information between us and between the consignee until we get all the information that's required, and we agree that. There are a lot of information exchange messages which are run upon the NCTS system. Communication generally between customs officers. They're very inflexible messages in that there's no free text on them, so you just send messages to and fro. There is some messages as well which might go to an agent or a trader as well throughout the process of resolving these issues that we might have. Once we have received the evidence to show that the declaration should be closed and is finalised, the inbound team will contact the Office of Departure, which is the Foreign Customs Office in whichever state it's in, and they will tell them that we have completed our query, and the response is that everything is fine, or duty's been paid, or they need to go back and charge their own traders for any particular movements or call upon guarantees. We may use from time to time, we may well use evidence again from C88, or other customs entries. We may also look at inventory systems as well, and we do look at Destinate quite a bit for a lot of movements that we have some queries in, for which may have been subject to the delayed decks over the past few months, of which they may not hold full customs paperwork. Could I have the next screen, please? Is that the next screen? Wow. Outbound again is another collection of teams based in the north of England who deal with all issues in regards to movements that have been made out of the UK to another state. They will cover all sorts of things. So the BIB, BIC, BID is about movements in sheds to and from sheds in other countries. They will look at and ensure that there's any issues involved in regards to using the fallback system, and the documents that are used are fine before clearing off a movement. And they will look at movements under resolution, which is where we got queries or where some issues have cropped up within the transit, the transit from the UK to another place, whether that be its border force are interested, or when it's got to the place there are missing the TAD does not agree with what was actually delivered. Could I have the next screen, please? Right. Oh, thank you. Every transit company document raised has a time limit, and as long as if the movement isn't closed by the time that by the next day of that time limit, then that will generate a list of movements that have not been have not been discharged properly, and that is sent to our central community transit office, which is based in, well, which is based in Salford. Yeah, that will go to them, and they will initiate an inquiry within 7 days. Yeah, by sending out a letter.
I think we've lost Norman. Stephen, I think maybe I need you to pick things up unless he comes back on promptly.
Yes.
Yeah, I think he's gone for the moment.
Norman, are you with us?
Hello, am I back?
Oh, you're back. You're back.
I don't know what happened there. I just disappeared. Where did I finish?
You're talking about the letters. The letters occurred.
Right, was I on the screen? Because I've been chatting away gaily for a while now.
We lost you very, very briefly, Norman. You were talking about the
All right.
letters out if the transit movement hasn't been completed.
Okay, if the transit movement hasn't been closed by within a day of the anticipated arrival date, yeah, then an investigation is started, or an investigation. There's an automatic note sent to the central office to start an investigation, which must start within 7 days. At that point, we will write to the principal named on the movement, yeah, to ask them for further details of what has happened to those goods, and ask them to ask their client. Well, quite often is to ask them to ask their clients what has happened with the goods, has duty been paid, and are there any issues? And then we will wait for that information to come back from those people, so that we can close the movement, or we can resolve any issues that are within the movement. The BIB, BIC, and BID queries are intershed queries, yeah, for which we have a look at, which we will deal with. But if you don't use sheds, then you probably won't be too involved with them. But we will be looking at the inventory systems as well on those things, to try and make sure that all these movements are completed and the right response is got, so that if any duty is due, then we'll get that duty. But if no duty is due, then we're not going to be charging anybody for something that they shouldn't be paying. The old transit system, again, is using the paper-based system, using the SAD documents, the single administrative documents. They're only used, this is a fallback system again, they're only used with prior arrangement with customs, unless you're a consignee consignor, when you're a lot freer to be able to do things, and indeed you can start and end the movements at your own authorized premises. Movements under resolution, it will become a movement under resolution by the Office of Destination if they're not satisfied with an aspect of the movement, and that could be all sorts of bits and pieces. It could be things not matching. Yeah, it should be different weights. There could be more, there could be less. Any issues around that, and again, we would just like to make sure that these movements have been properly closed, that there's no particular issues with them. We do quite often. I mean, this is not unusual. Quite often, things happen in transit, and a wagon went off and it didn't have all the things on it was supposed to have, or it's arrived and there's less things on it, or a whole load of coal arrived and it was heavier or lighter than when it was first sent. There's an awful lot of things that can happen in these things, which I'm sure you're more than aware of, and we engage in a lot of conversation just to make it right and just to make it reasonable as well, because we know things happen, and we accept that weights or numbers and things like that, there can be perfectly adequate reasons why they may change and be different. So, but that really, it really demands just a lot to and fro, answering questions and information being provided. Could I have the next screen, please, Chris? And the next screen is in regards to, it is really just the processes of what happened. There we go. Here we go. These are the processes that happen within the inbound and the outbound systems. They are, by and large, follow a similar pattern, that an inquiry is received from customs. Yeah, we set up a file. Yeah, letters are sent either, for the if goods are coming in, it's sent to the consignee. If we have the address, we don't always have a clear address for that. But if we do have a proper address, we will send letters out to the consignee and contact them. If it's outbound, then we will contact the principal of the movement and query with them the issues, and they may end up querying with their clients the like of what's happened with the goods. We set a target date for getting a response. We like to get quick answers, and we do get a lot of quick answers insofar as it does help early resolution for us, which is good. Yeah, and that we can release guarantee when issues are resolved sooner if we've got the information sooner. We check things against the TADs and other information. We might check things against inventory systems. We will inform other customs officers, the requesting customs officers, of the results as soon as we have them. Yeah, and to make sure that everything is done in as quick a way as possible and as satisfactory way as possible. If we don't receive any response, then we really just looking at well, the information we have in front of us for making a decision. We may send stuff. We may send cases for charges to be applied. Yeah, but we certainly will tell other foreign customs that we've had no information, and they may have to. They will have to start their own investigation into what has gone there to find out who should be paying duty, or who should be finishing recovery. It's not always the end of it. Quite often we might receive later on information from our customers, from our traders, who say, well, actually, I now have this information I didn't have before, and it's always looked at. Yeah, we're always considerate of what's going on, and we appreciate things don't always come as quick as they can do, but we do like to think that nothing's ever, well, generally ever too late, and we will give it some consideration. I think that's the end of my set of slides.
Thank you, Norman. Liam, I'll take your advice, Liam. What do you want me to go into a Q&A session, or do we have time, or do we commit to providing a written response to everything?
Well, I think that if we can stop sharing the slides now, Chris, and instead of going into the frequently asked questions, maybe we can go to, I know there's been a number of questions that our participants have asked, and it would be nice if we were to go to some of those and share those after we hear from Jason. But I think in terms of the interest of time and to give as much time as possible to come to questions, then we'll do that, if that's okay, Stephen. So
thank you.
Thank you for that. That was most useful to see the background of what's happening in HMRC with transit movements, and we will come to the questions that have been asked. I think there's some interesting questions there already. I know that the colleagues in the background are providing links for various things, but I think it's also nice sometimes to come and have a wee discussion on some of those points, and we'll do that. So Jason, over to you. You've been very kind at Rainer Essex to give us a bit of your time to deal with these two key questions that we're hearing about a lot of. One is the one-stop shop set up by the EU, and the other one has been VAT triangulation. So over to you, please share your screen and take us through your presentation, your short presentation on these matters.
Thank you. Yes, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for the introduction there. Yeah, so this is just a little little presentation really that we're just putting on the side there. Also just that previous presentation, that I found that very interesting, because although my background is VAT and customs, because I work in accountancy, I tend not to deal so much with the sort of things like transit and stuff like that. So it was quite educational for me, because I know about it, but it's nice to actually understand the more sort of intricate detail of it. So thank you for that. Right, so I'm just going to cover a couple of things very quickly this afternoon. I'm going to start actually with triangulation. That's probably sort of the easiest one to close off. So I get a lot of clients with these sorts of queries. So prior to Brexit, we had a simplification whereby we could avoid VAT registration, basically. So for those not familiar with triangulation, traditionally B would be the UK, or what we'd call an intermediary. A would be the customer, we'll just say like France, or yeah, we'll just say France, and then C would be a supplier, perhaps in Germany. So in effect, French customer business would call UK, say I'd like some machinery. B doesn't make this, it calls its supplier here in Germany and asks for the goods. So the goods physically go from Germany to France. Germany bills UK, and then UK bills France. And in this triangulation scenario, there was no requirement to register for VAT anywhere other than in the UK, where you already are. And the whole sort of transactions were zero rated. It would be a zero rated sale from Germany to the UK intermediary, and it'd be a zero rated sale from the UK to the French end business customer. So nice and neat. We lost that at the start of this year. So the default position now is that we still have lots of businesses that order stock of products from a supplier in the EU and then get it shipped direct to their business customer somewhere else in the EU. So alas, we have a scenario where we traditionally you would either register for VAT in the country where the goods are received. So in my example here, the UK company would have to register for VAT in France, where the goods are received, or as an alternative, if your supplier is in Germany, for example, and that's where all of your stuff comes from, you'd register for VAT in Germany. And then you'd have a sale from your sort of German VAT registration to your French customer. So it'd still be intra-EU, it would still be zero rated, but you'd have the added burden of, it's not a major burden, but it's not the same as before. So you'd have the burden of a VAT registration in Germany. So I mean, I said there's an exception to the rule, which is triangulation still does work for businesses that operate under the Northern Ireland Protocol. Effectively, businesses are basically those that have goods or stock in Northern Ireland, or actual companies in Northern Ireland. So a bit of an advantage for a Northern Irish based business or a GB business that has stock or storage of goods in Northern Ireland. In that scenario, triangulation still works, because the Northern Ireland remains in the EU for sort of VAT purposes for now. Although of course there's things developing in the news over the last 48 hours, where who knows. But for now, it might be advantageous to have stock either routed or stored through Northern Ireland. But it's not going to be for everybody, because these things take effort, time, and so while things are still fluid, probably not a good idea anyway. So I'm not going to. I've just explained the slide there, so we're not going to go through it in any more detail. But of course, the slides will be available afterwards, I'm sure. So that's triangulation.
Listen, just before you finish off on that, just a question on that from my perspective, because we received lots of questions. Just if you go back to that last slide, if you wouldn't mind. Yep. We received lots of questions about this, because of course businesses became well used to moving goods or buying and selling goods that never actually touched the UK shores.
Correct.
So for a business that can no longer do that, what are their options? You use the example here of France and Germany. What are the options? Are you taking us now to the OneStop Shop as one of the options to cure this problem of a UK trader who wants to buy goods in another country, ship them to a customer in a third country. What do they have to do to account for the VAT now?
Okay, so triangulation is something that only concerns other businesses. So these are B2B transactions.
Yeah.
So triangulation would have been useful. You know, I've got lots of clients that are UK based. Their products are manufactured in Germany or Netherlands, and they ship from the Netherlands and Germany, you know, from a parent company in effect, who then would ship to either the UK or elsewhere in the EU. So triangulation is B2B only. So there isn't any other solutions per se, other than you need to register for VAT in the country where the goods are supplied, or where the goods are going. I always say go where the goods are manufactured or supplied. Is that because normally you'd only have one supplier or maybe one or two suppliers that you'd use. So it's easier to do that than if you register for VAT in every country where you're going to be selling to, because that gets quite cost prohibitive. So most ordinary sort of SMEs have maybe just the one main key supplier somewhere in Europe. So it kind of works. But yeah, I mean, that's it. I mean, but it's basic VAT. So place of supply of goods is where they are at the time of the sale. And in this triangulation scenario, when the UK, or I should say GB, sorry, when GB places an order with, say, for example, a German manufacturer, the sale takes place in Germany. So the GB company technically owns the stock now in Germany. So then when the German manufacturer ships it to France, it's actually GB owned equipment. So the goods in Germany at the time of sale, so therefore German VAT reg. So that's how that works. Right. So so triangulation B2B only. So there are two different schemes that came on board in July. One's called Import OneStop Shop, and then the other one is called OneStop Shop, and they are quite different things, although they have the same sort of name and they try to achieve the same thing. So both of these schemes are only for B2C. So this is business to consumer, so effectively retail online type sales, you know, through your website or whatever. And so there's no solution for the B2B folks. That's just VAT registration really. With Import One-Stop Shop, this is where the goods are not in the EU at the time of sale. So traditionally that would be a GB business with some stock, you know, here in GB. I say GB now because Northern Ireland is that kind of quasi is a half in, half out kind of place. So if you're a shop, a retail shop, where you've got an online website and you sell through your own website products, if they're over £135 in value, or I want to say the products, that's the parcel, so that, you know, if there's 5 things in the envelope or in the box that you're shipping to the customer, the total value is over 135. It's very simple. It's a zero rated export. So there's no VAT charged by the GB business. It is VAT charged, but it's charged at zero rate. The product is shipped or exported, whether you use Royal Mail or whatever, or the courier service. The customer is the importer of record, which means when the product lands in the EU customer's country, let's just say it's somebody in Italy, they've ordered a product off your website, it gets shipped to Italy, you zero rate it as a GB seller. When it lands in Italy, it will be caught by the Italian customs, I guess, and they will assess for import duty, if there is any. Import duty only applies on goods over 135. So that's where the 135 sort of figure comes from. So there might be some duty on that, or maybe not, depending what the product is. And then they'll also apply Italian VAT at that point. And then realistically, one or two things will happen. Either the customer will get lucky, the product will be delivered and sort of no duty and VAT will be applied because it just slips the net. Or more likely what will happen is that the Italian customer will get a knock on the door, either from the Italian post service or the courier that you're using. And they'll ask for the Italian VAT, the duty, and an admin fee. So the customer's going to have to pay some more before they get their product. As long as that's explained to the customer at the point of sale on the website, that says T's and C's, you know, customer is responsible for import duty and VAT, then that's that. The alternative is to register for VAT in the countries where you're shipping to. So if you're only selling to Italian customers because of the particular market you're targeting, then it probably makes sense to register for VAT in Italy. But you don't have to. is the point. So that's over 135. If it's under £135, so import one-stop shop doesn't apply to anything over 135. So if it's over 135, it's just zero rated sale, yeah, or choose to register for that at the other end if you really want to. Import one-stop shop only applies to products or parcels or packages under 135. So if I order 5 I know iPhone cases or something, and they all come under £135 from a GB business, and I get them shipped to my to my home in, I don't know, France or whatever. This is optional as well, so the business doesn't have to do this. So if it doesn't want to do it, doesn't have to use import one-stop shop, and basically it's a zero rated sale. Let's just say it's £50, zero rated sale, and it's the same as my first slide. So zero rated. At the other end, when it arrives at the EU member state, it'll be subject to VAT. It might slip through the net, unlikely, and the customer gets a knock on the door. So that's sort of the default position. Import one-stop shop is to try and make the customer experience nicer, so that they don't get a knock on the door, that they don't get an admin fee as well. It's obviously more hassle for the shipping and the freight agents and the companies as well, and for the foreign customs officers. So import one-stop shop is saying, well, actually, at the time you make a sale to your Italian-French consumer, you actually charge them French and Italian VAT. And so the customer pays that. So it's not really coming out of your pocket per se, because the customer always pays VAT. And then you ship the product showing that VAT's being charged at the Italian VAT rate with your import one-stop shop VAT number. And then that, in theory, will then go through the customs. They'll see that Italian VAT's being charged, nothing else to pay. Product will get delivered to the customer, no knock on the door for extra fees. So it is a smoother, nicer experience. But there is an added cost of registering for import one-stop shop. On saying that, there's some interesting products on the market. Royal Mail are offering, if you sort of Google Royal Mail IOSS, they've got 2 products. One's through Deloitte, which is like a fixed fee. I think it's like £2,000 a year, and they'll do the registration and a year's worth of iOS VAT returns. That's probably quite good for very large businesses that have got a large retail selling aspect to EU customers. They also have another product called Taximo. Sorry to drop names, but there's no affiliation here at these. And Taximo charge is an app that sits at the back of the back of your website, and it charges £2 per shipment. So that probably works better for smaller businesses that are just only selling odds and ends to the EU, or don't do anything at all, just zero rate it and let the customer get potluck at their other end. So that's import one-stop shop. Then, and I've just there's a little flow chart here, so it's hopefully quite helpful. And then one-stop shop, which also came online in July. This one is really where the stock is already held in the EU. So some businesses might just have stock in the UK. So that's fine, nice and simple. Some businesses might just have stock held in a warehouse in Europe, whether it's through Amazon or at their own warehouse that they rent. So one-stop shop is about the stock is held already in Europe, and then you're selling to European European consumers. First things first, if you have stock held in an EU member state, then you would have to have a VAT registration in that member state, because the place of supply of goods is where they are at the time of sale. If I've got a load of stock held in an Amazon warehouse in Italy, Amazon will insist on anyway, but I'd have to register for VAT in Italy because I'm making sales from Italy, even though I'm a GB business. Second thing is then, and where one-stop shop comes in, is that if let's just say I've got my own warehouse in Italy, so I rent a place and I can service all of my European customers from my Italy warehouse. When I sell to Italian customers, that's fine. I charge them Italian VAT. When I sell to other EU customers, up to the first €10,000, I can continue to charge them Italian VAT. Once I hit €10,000 across all EU member states, I have to either A, register for VAT in each of those member states where I sell to, or, and this is where One-Stop Shop comes in, or I register for One-Stop Shop, which is a single VAT registration that covers all my sales that I make from my EU stock to my EU consumers. So Italy to Germany, Italy to France, Italy to Spain, whatever. So that's what that one's for. So again, it's B2C, specifically where you have the stock already in the EU. And so for some businesses, you might end up having to have an import one-stop shop registration because you've got stock held either in the UK or outside of the EU. So you might just have stock, coming in from China or something like that. And you might have stock held in the EU, so you'd end up with a one-stop shop registration. So you end up with two OSs, so to speak. And the only other thing to mention is that you can't register for import one-stop shop or one-stop shop in GB with HMRC. I'll caveat that in a second. So you'd have to register for these schemes in another EU member state. People are preferring Ireland because they speak English. If it's a business that operates under the Northern Irish Protocol, then you can register for import one-stop shop on the HMRC website. But yeah, it depends. I don't know if there's anybody in the audience today who are based in Northern Ireland or have stock held there. I don't know. There you go. Right. I've whistled all through those.
One slight small question attached to that, and
Yes,
Subjit has raised this in the chat actually, which is about registration of VAT and establishment in the European Union. So you've talked about one-stop shop and registering for VAT. But actually, for most businesses, they do have to be able to demonstrate EU establishment rules have been met as well. Isn't that right?
Yes, potentially. It does depend on the scenario. I mean, if it's goods, it's relatively straightforward, because if you've got goods in Italy, then you may not, even if you're not established there, you'd certainly have to have a VAT registration. In terms of services, it is a little bit difficult. That's a little bit more trickier, because you could be based in Los Angeles providing IT services across Europe, and so and you're basically one guy or woman in Los Angeles, so you clearly don't have an establishment there. I mean, services, we're not covered here for services, because services is almost untouched in terms of Brexit, so it doesn't really matter. I mean, establishment, I mean, you've got fixed establishment, you've got a branch. I'm saying that, I've managed to obtain VAT registrations quite easily. Yeah, relatively easily, not necessarily quickly, across Europe for our clients who are all based in the UK, but for whatever sort of scenarios, they need a VAT registration in the EU.
Okay.
I mean, I wouldn't get too hung up on establishment. I mean, it's important. The problem with establishment is that some EU member states interpret it in a different way.
Right. So there may be some member states where there may be some member states where reaching the establishment rules or fit, there may be some easier to establish than others in terms of VAT. Yes. And for B2B, if you're established in one EU member state with VAT for VAT purposes, does that then allow you to have transactions in multiple EU member states on one VAT registration?
Well, yes. I have some clients who have Irish VAT registration. They actually have an Irish company as well, because it was just tradition. They had one anyway before Brexit, but you got Irish VAT registration. They've got so that effectively gives them an EU VAT registration, but they're also a UK company as well. So in effect, if they're doing something across Europe, they'll put their sales through their Irish entity and then use their Irish VAT number. They get their triangulation. And then, in effect, if they want their profit to go back to the UK or GB entity, then they'll just do some sort of management charge between Ireland and the GB company. So there's ways and means of doing things, but no one size fits all.
Yeah, and I guess the best advice we can give here is to talk to a specialist advisor.
Talk to your accountants, yeah. Talk to your accountants or an advisor or whatever. Yeah, yes.
And get proper advice before you make big decisions about both where you do your invoicing, where you register your VAT, and how you repatriate profits and when.
Because I mean, HMRC, can only give advice on UK VAT matters. So if you ring up HMRC on the helpline, which is helpful and useful, but you start asking them all, should I register for VAT in France or something like that? It's not their remit. So you need to talk to an accountant.
You do indeed, and in particular someone that has knowledge across continents and across borders and so on. Thank you very much for that, Jason.
Thank you for my time.
I'm going to circle back now to Stephen and to Norman from HMRC, because we have had a number of questions. I know there's been some responses here as well, Stephen, but is there anything you wanted to particularly pick up on in relation to transit?
Well, I'd like to congratulate the group for asking us some stumper questions. So there's been a very lively chat in our expert chat bar. And as I'm sure you all know, we are very circumspect in HMRC. And so I think we're going to take away some of the questions, if you don't mind. So if I can just have a quick look. Malgazata asked a question about goods coming into the UK on T1 from EU. We're going to take that one away and provide a full response. Adelina.
I think the issue there is when traders receive those goods as part of a transit movement, how do they know that the haulier has actually, discharged the transit movement? And is the haulier responsible for ensuring that NCTS has been informed that movement has been concluded in that way, or if not, how do they check? And I think it's a theme that we get from traders, is sometimes they just don't know. Sometimes goods arrive and they actually don't even know if an import has been done, declaration has been done, or if it was a transit movement or it wasn't a transit movement. So yes. How do traders fill that gap?
Brilliant. Yeah, perfect. Thank you. That's helpful. Adelina, you asked a very good question about how do you get proof of export from a groupage consignment with a T1. Again, that's one we're going to take away. So again, very lively debate about that one. Here's a question I can answer. Can we have a copy of these slides, please? Absolutely, no doubt. And what we'll do is we'll incorporate all of the questions that were raised today along with the answers.
And I should say that we are recording this session as well. I should have said that at the top of the event, and that recording will be made available to all of those that have attended, and the way that we usually do, through a link to your email, as I understand it. So you'll have the slides, you'll have the recording as well.
Yeah, should have known I've done my hair in advance.
Yeah, it's too late now.
Yeah. So Malgazata, we'll come back on your questions as well. Suvjit asked if an IPR process is in place, is a T1 required for return to the EU? Now, we have put a link into the guidance there that we think will be helpful to that, but we will absolutely come back on that question and confirm if that's okay. And Rebecca Horgan asked if a shipment is included in a groupage and the T1 covers all the goods on the trailer, does our customer require an additional individual T1 for their goods only? And we were confident in the response to that one. As long as the T1 covers all of the goods and the principal trader is able to provide satisfactory evidence for the movement, the customer will not need to have an additional T1 to cover their goods only. So we've got the full answer in there. So yes, we just want to double check our answers to the other ones.
I think the only caveat I'd put to that, Stephen, is that the goods leave here under groupage, but then become split at a location elsewhere, and then it may be that movement, that there's a second transit document required at some point. So
the full explanation there.
Yeah, your explanation presumes that the groupage leaves the UK, GB rather, leaves GB, and that whole group load arrives at its destination for discharge at the same time. And in those circumstances, it wouldn't.
Yeah, I think the full answer in the chat bar does give a little bit more additional information about what happens if there is separation. So and if there is another destination. So but we'll take that away as well and make sure that the full response includes all of that. So well done to everybody for asking some very tricky questions today. We'll take them away and make sure you get a full response very, very soon after this course finished.
Thank you very much, Stephen. And I should say in the HMRC presentation, Stephen has very helpfully included a number of frequently asked questions. So even if you haven't thought of a question to ask today. Taking a read through those FAQs, I think will maybe helpfully point you in the direction for some of the things you haven't yet thought of, as they say. Jason, thank you for putting that response into the chat for Sujit on the establishment issue. That's very helpful. It just remains for me to, I think, to bring things to a close and to try and do that in a timely manner, and just ask Heidi if she can share again the end of our presentation. I'm going to flick across to we did it at the same time to the end. So just to say that clearly the reason why some of you are here today, I'm sure, is because you know that Chamber Customs has a TransitNet service that we launched about 6 weeks ago, and this is response to our customers asking us to help them to make transit movements. So we can create transit declarations on your behalf through TransitNet. TransitNet's a global service that we act as an agent for in the UK. We can submit and monitor your declarations on your behalf, and obviously if you need export declarations to go with a transit movement from the UK, then we can produce that for you as well. And I think one of the advantages of TransitNet that we liked is that we can arrange with TransitNet a comprehensive bank guarantee for the duty and VAT during the transit movement and by consignment. So for lots of SMEs who don't particularly want to apply for their own transit guarantee, this has been a helpful way of being able to make transit movements without the need for that full comprehensive guarantee to be in place during the whole of the year. But indeed, to buy it's a bit like buying short-term insurance on your car. You just buy it for the movement of goods that's taking place at that time. And of course, TransitNet operates under the EU Common Transit and the Common Transit Convention regulations and principles. So we provide that security. We do have 150 agents across the UK and 41 locations ready to respond to the needs of our networks and further and beyond. We're serving thousands of customers already. If you happen to be on here and would like our help, then we'd be delighted to hear from you, either by contacting your Chamber of Commerce or come to chambercustoms.co.uk, and we will make sure that that your nearest chamber knows that you need their help. So we'll do that for you. We can stop sharing the slides now, Heidi, and it just remains for me to thank Jason, thank Stephen, thank Norman and the wider HMRC team for participating today and being on hand to answer questions and queries from our participants, and to thank our participants for taking the time to be with us today. I hope you found this session helpful, and that we'll be in touch with you subsequently with the link for the recording and to pass on those slides. Thank you for your time. There's another session in the series coming up soon, which we'll make sure you know about as well. So thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
I think we're probably now down to just give me 1 second. So I'm just removing some of the guests that are still on the call before we. I think everyone else is HMRC that is still in the room. Is Stephen still here? No, I think it's just you and me, Kelvin.